Operations is a weird one for sure. It's certainly more on the Odyssey side than it is on the Elite side, and that comes with a whole bunch of problems that are very much related to Odyssey itself. Now, this isn't going to be a rant video, at least I don't intend it to be that way. That said, you've probably seen some of the complaints if you've been looking at online communities, whether it's on Reddit, X, the official forums, or over on YouTube, but not everything has been going perfectly well with this update. And if any of you have tried it out for yourself, you'll no doubt have encountered quite a few of the problems. That said, the game does try something different. It has tried something new, albeit wrapped up in gameplay that we've had for many years at this point. So, what is Operations all about? Well, it's an update that allows us to get into a squad-based gameplay, regardless of your location in the galaxy. As long as you can dock up, you can join a lobby and get involved in various different missions. Some of these are in ship, some of them are on foot, some are a bit of a hybrid where you'll start out on ship and then dock up with a mega ship and get involved in some combat. So the missions are up for up to 4 players. You can do this with friends, or you can just use the matchmaking lobby, which is what I did. Wanted to test that out, and the game will then matchmake you with a few other people, and you can go off and do some of these missions. It can also be done solo, at least apparently, allegedly, but you're probably going to find it very, very difficult if you do that, because these missions are designed for groups of 4 players. So technically you can do this solo, but the difficulty isn't going to scale down for you. But with that in mind, there are some different difficulty levels here. You can choose a mission that is easy, or you can choose a mission that is hard. Now, I don't want to go too much into the ins and outs of what this is all about. The Operations update has been well accounted for at this point, both by myself over the past few months with the details we had from Frontier, as well as over the past few days other YouTubers. There's some really good reviews. Always recommend Commander Burr. You can check out the Burr Pit. Just go. I'm sure you know him by now, but if you don't, do a good Google search, YouTube search, and I'm sure you'll find his Operations review, and you'll get a load of information on exactly how everything works there. And so if you want to know everything about mission structures and the type of rewards you can get and all that lovely stuff, then Burr Pit's video is certainly the place to look. For me, I want to take a slightly different approach because I'm kind of looking at how all of this with Operations integrates into Elite Dangerous as a whole. And some of that will touch on Operations itself, specifically one of the biggest problems I have with it at the moment, which is, of course, performance. A lot of people online are complaining about this. I'm not the only one. I run Elite Dangerous on my main PC on an RTX 4090, Ryzen 7 5800X 3D, and 96GB of RAM. All of that to tell you that when my frame is 45 FPS during these missions, it feels like something is very much off. Not entirely sure if that is down to my PC. Haven't had time yet to really start digging around inside of it, but as the PC works perfectly fine with every single other game, I'm more leaning towards it being Elite Dangerous. Now, I've tried it on my other PC, which is an RTX 3080, and it does run a little bit better, but again, we drop down to a sub 50 frames a second quite frequently on that. And this is 1440p with roughly medium settings. You can also see right here where I've set the RTX 4090 to run at 1080p on low settings, and it doesn't improve things a whole lot. Outside of the Odyssey on foot missions, we get multiple hundreds of frames a second, and yeah, everything works perfectly fine, even on foot in stations and outside the combat zones. But as soon as we get in there with other players involved, we start hitting at these lower frame rates. And the same ultimately happened on my RTX 3080 as well. So, not going to belabor that point too much, but we do know that Frontier is saying this is effectively a live beta process. They're going to tweak things and improve things over time. But at this point in time, I feel, 5-6 years after the release of Odyssey, that this kind of performance is not really acceptable for an FPS style game, regardless of whether or not Frontier want to classify this as a beta. Now, as for the update itself, I'm kind of in two minds on my thoughts on this. On the one hand, it's very nice to have new content. It's nice to have new content in Elite pretty much always, but it's nice to have content that you can just pick up and play and drop straight in, because one of the biggest things about Elite Dangerous is the amount of time that it takes to do absolutely anything. So with the ability just to dock up somewhere and quickly get involved in missions, whether these are ship-focused or on-foot focused, I think this is really nice indeed. It means that you're wasting a lot less time before you can actually drop in to some combat, some action. And also, if you do happen to die inside these missions, you kind of respawn either outside your ship if you're on foot, or your ship will respawn itself on the mission runner, which is a kind of little mini mega ship that takes you from location to location. Well, basically, it is the hub of operations for the missions. These are self-contained instances, by the way. Now, like I say, I have mixed feelings on operations, and the more, shall we say, critical or negative feelings I have towards operations are due to the exact same reason I think it's a good update. The fact that you can just get a pickup group and drop into combat anytime within, well, that you like. This is something that, broadly speaking, kind of feels misplaced within Elite Dangerous. The game has, after all, always been a simulated, semi-realistic type environment. It takes you time to get from A to B, it takes you time to do any particular objective, and everything is meant to have a specific intention, specific consequences within the game. Operations removes that because what it gives you is a shooter as well as a spaceship arcade style game that doesn't really have any consequences on you as a player. You're not going to be losing huge amounts of money here, you're not going to be losing your ship and having to rebuy, and the consequences that Elite normally carries are largely absent. And that, in my opinion, becomes even more strange when you consider the fact that certain operations missions can have an impact on the power play. So yes, that's right, you can jump into these isolated instances of missions, again whether they're on foot or in ship, and then have an impact on the broader galaxy, which of course is the content that's taking place outside of your mission instances. In a way then, it could be argued that Elite Dangerous Operations is aimed at a different class of player as the traditional Elite Dangerous player. At least it kind of feels that way. I don't know about you, but I didn't pick up Elite Dangerous as a big open world simulated galaxy just about to drop into pickup group lobby-based missions. It does kind of feel like these two elements are at odds with each other. So, like I say, I've got very mixed feelings on this because on the one hand I can certainly see the appeal and the attraction of having these little self-contained isolated missions into which you can drop in with a pickup group and get into the action very, very fast. On the other hand, it feels as though it's very much separated from Elite Dangerous. It kind of feels like a separate little game within a game. Now, also, I said right at the start of the video that I don't want this to be a rant video, and that's why I'm not going to go too heavily on the on-foot combat side of things itself. All of this has been recounted by myself and many other people over the years many times. But suffice to say that I'm not a big fan of Odyssey focused on foot combat. It feels very clunky, it feels very dated, it doesn't feel like a modern shooter in any way whatsoever. And I know the counter-argument to that is, well, it's not a shooter, it is a space game, but if you're going to put a shooter in your space game, then it should function as a good quality shooter. At least that is my opinion. To be perfectly fair to Frontier, of course, they have iteratively improved Odyssey over the years. It's nowhere near as bad as what it was when it launched, and I'm talking about the on-foot shooter side of the game rather than Odyssey as a whole. But we still got a lot of problems with the AI not being particularly smart. They will often charge towards you. Sometimes they will go for cover, sometimes they won't, and they don't seem overly smart. It's all very bullet spongy as well. It's not a particular type of combat that I'm in favour of, unless you're playing something like Space Marine. I really like that. But it's always felt to me that Odyssey has never really known what type of shooter it wants to be. And I think in the final analysis, that also sums up Operations. To me, it feels like an update that's not quite sure what it wants to be. Now, if it was released as a little self-contained mini-game, I'd be all for it. I think what Frontier have designed here is very nice in principle. Not too enamoured with their execution of it, but in principle, it does work very well. We've got lobbies, we've got matchmaking, we've got missions inside ships, we've got missions on foot, and it all blends together in a pretty nice way, as long as you take into account the considerations of the problems that come with the FPS combat that I've already discussed. But when you bolt this type of addition into Elite Dangerous as a whole, and it's at once a separate component, but also a part of the main game that's not really a separate component, it all feels a little bit odd to me. And it seems like, just as with Odyssey not knowing what kind of shooter it wants to be, it kind of feels like Operations doesn't really know what kind of update it wants to be. So that is my take on this. I'd love to hear your thoughts about all of it in the comments section below. There's another video on the screen right here if you want to check that out. Thanks for watching this video all the way through. Do take care, and I'll catch you next time.